friend Brad. Hello, everybody. Good to be with you. Happy Saturday morning. I want to first start off by welcoming the Real America's Voice audience. I have been blessed to be among them the last 5 years, and it is such a special group. I know a lot of you watch it. Thank you to them. And then today is a very special birthday. Today is the 250th birthday of the U.S. Marines. So any moms and dads of U.S. Marines, anyone who served, happy birthday. The greatest fighting force in the world. So I want to tip my hat to them. All right, I want to talk for a few minutes about what matters to me, which is truth, because I believe right now when people ask me, what are we in the middle of? And the answer is we're in a war over truth. And I'm going to get to that in a second, because I have a fun story to tell you. I was on the way to the airport yesterday. I actually was in the airport, and my phone rang. I picked it up, and it was President Trump. And I'm always humbled when this happens, because the natural way this conversation goes is, what you up to, Mr. President? And then he rattles off things like, well, world peace, and getting rid of terrorists, blowing them out of the water, and signing executive orders. And I never have anything to counter that's even close to what he does. And so that's how it goes. What you doing, Mr. President? Oh, I just got off the phone with Vlad Putin, and now I'm going to go see Zelensky. We're going to make world peace, and I'm not going to do this, the missiles, and I'm feeling really inadequate. And then something pops in my mind. I'm like, he doesn't know yet that I'm going to Moms for Liberty. He's going to be impressed. So he says, there's a speaker in the background. He's like, where are you, John? I'm like, I'm in the airport, sir. He says, are you with anyone? I'm like, I'm with my wife. She said, put him on. So my wife starts talking to the president for like 20 minutes. They're solving world peace. I'm sitting there just watching. He tells my wife, would you please put John back on? I said, okay. So Mr. President, thank you. He said, all right, I want you to deliver a special message to those amazing ladies at Moms for Liberty. He said, first, thank them, because I know they helped me win the election last year. I could not have done it with them being in the trenches, right? You know it. He knows it. But then he went a little step further. He said, but first I want to thank them for stepping into the void and going to those school board meetings and making sure that their children were safe, that they were not indoctrinated, that they wouldn't run into pornographic books in schools, that they wouldn't have to stand on a podium with a man when they were a girl in women's sports. They stepped into the void, and there is no more fearsome fighting force than a group of moms. And so from the president, from this reporter, I want to pass that on. It was pretty fun and organic moment. All right, back to the business at hand. So my business is to try to give people a little bit of truth here and there. We're often denied it in Washington. And I've looked at the last 10 years, and people say, well, what has been going on the last 10 years? And at its core, what's going on is that there is a war over truth in America. There is an element of American society, sometimes backed by foreigners, that want to eradicate the core truths in America. They want to tell you that a man could be a woman. They want to tell you that Hunter Biden's laptop wasn't real when it was. They want to tell you that Donald Trump was a Russian spy when he wasn't. And we've gone through this. My profession, at least the profession I used to be in before I left it, has been a major perpetrator. But the war on truth has a greater and bigger goal. And I said this a few weeks ago when some of my Democratic friends sent me like, hey, John, you've gone off your rocker. I said that at the end of the day, this war of truth is designed to eradicate the ultimate truth that we all have in American society. And that is that our Creator endowed us with certain inalienable rights. And if they can destroy those other truths, they'll eventually destroy that truth. And my Democratic friends say, oh, you've lost it. You've gone MAGA, John. What's wrong with you? And then a guy named Senator Tim Kaine got up and said, hey, no, we don't get our liberties from God. We get them from government. And I said, bingo. I sent that back. I said, I think Senator Kaine's gone MAGA too. So, but think about that. A Democratic senator said out loud what the real goal of the war on truth is, and that is to one day eradicate what our nation was built on, that our Creator gave us inalienable rights, particularly the right of freedom, the right to raise our children the way we choose to raise them, the way we believe God wants us to raise them, the right to believe what we want to do. And this war on truth began a decade ago. It started with the ridicule of Jon Stewart. It eventually escalated to the business of censorship. I was censored. Many of you were censored. It then went to deplatforming and debanking, trying to ruin our businesses. Then it went to prosecution. President Trump charged 4 times over the course of 2 years, and 90-plus charges. And even when that didn't work, what have they moved to in the last? Some in the left have moved to the notion that execution is the only option, and you saw that with my good friend Charlie Kirk. We have to win this war on truth. We have to end this persecution of what is the great American dream, that we all have freedom. Now, we've made a lot of strides. Actually, you've made a lot of strides. What has gone on in the parents' movement in America is one of the most extraordinary political things I've seen in my 40 years as a journalist. And people say, well, why is it so powerful? And I say, it's really simple. If you've ever been hunting in the woods, or if you own a cabin in the woods like I do, you know the scariest sight in the world is being between a mother bear and her cubs. And I think you've shown that in the world of politics. You've taken what every hunter knows and you brought it into the political realm. You have made it an incredible force to say, my children were given to me by God and I will defend them and I will raise them the way I want. No government, no school board, no teacher, no teachers union is going to get between me and my cubs. And I think it is such an extraordinary achievement, what you've done. It really is. And it feels like you've been around 200 years, and in many ways you've been around 250 years, because the liberty of these moms are the same liberty that gave the passion to our founding fathers and founding mothers to get this country started. But in 4 years, you've moved the needle a long way. But we have a large fight still ahead of us. In the minutes I have left here, I just want to share a couple things, because I think it's becoming clear to me from my own reporting that this fight isn't just from enemies among us in American society, the far left that wants to change America. It is fueled and funded and pushed by our foreign adversaries. And I want to share a story with you that happened a few months ago, and then I'll tell you something that Kash Patel told me in an interview the FBI director told me a couple days ago. A few years ago, I got the chance to interview a Cuban spy. He'd been a Cuban spy for almost 50 years. He started with Castro. In the early days, it was Castro and the Soviets, and near the end of his career, it was the Cuban regime with the Chinese, with the Venezuelans, with the Iranians, with the North Koreans. The evil axis inside of Cuba just kept expanding. And he said his goal was to wage a psychological war against America, to make America fall from within without Cuba ever having to fire a shot. And I said, well, what was the playbook? And he said, it's simple. It's like 5 simple principles. The first is that it's really hard to change older people's minds. So don't bother doing that. Start with the youngest generation. Prey on the children and young minds of America. Think about what's gone on the last few years, and you can see a lot of that going on. The second, he said, and this was surprising to me, but when we think about it, it's going on a minute. One of the plays in the playbook is to make the abnormal normal. Make the abnormal normal. Think about that. It's kind of abnormal to have a guy on a women's sports podium, but that's what's been going on, right? It's kind of abnormal to tell us that we didn't have the liberties that our Constitution and Declaration of Independence say we have. The normalization of the abnormal is right out of the playbook of the Soviet Empire, out of the Marxists, and it's being played out today by their advocates here in America, teachers' unions and far left groups. The third thing he said is it's important to create a constant sense of crisis, to constantly have a crisis. And so climate change is a crisis, until it isn't. We have all the other things that we're told every day. Today, No Kings will be out, or the No Kings Antifa protests will be out there trying to tell us there's a crisis in America. It's ripped out of this playbook that this Cuban spy enumerated to me. The fourth thing is you have to create division. You have to create division. You have to put people against each other. And think about what your children were being taught until you stepped into that void, that there's only 2 types of Americans, oppressors and oppressed. That is right out of the Marxist, communist, Soviet playbook. And so this Cuban said, well, what's the 5th one? He said, oh, that one we got taken care of a long time ago. I'm like, what is it? And he said, oh, you just use the American media. It's so simple. And I realized what a profound thing, that how easy it is for our enemies to take the media and to turn it around us. And instead of it being a vessel of truth, it has become a vessel of misinformation designed to carry out that war on truth. And I think today, we have found, just like you have created a way to create a competitive apparatus to go into these school boards, into these school districts, and change the world. We're beginning to build a new truth serum with a whole new industry in America that tells people the truth, that trusts them to make up their own mind. If you just give them the facts, you don't have to indoctrinate them like the New York Times and the Washington Post do every day. That competition is beginning to fill the void. And I think we're at an extraordinary moment in history. And yesterday I saw a mom, a grandma, and a young daughter here, 3 generations of amazing ladies. I realized that because of the work you have done just in the last few years, somewhere this weekend there'll be a young boy or young girl doing their homework, and they won't have to worry that they're going to be forced to read a pornographic book. They won't have to worry that they're going to have to stay on a stand or go into a locker room with a male when they're a woman, because you stepped into the void. You became that vessel of truth. You became that vessel of action. What you've achieved in the last 4 years is nothing short of extraordinary in American politics. It is one of the most amazing. Yeah, give yourself applause. You deserve it. It is amazing. A long time ago, I got to see the power of a woman. My young wife and I were sitting in a doctor's office, and we were holding our baby boy, our son, in our hands, and the doctor came to us and said, I have to tell you this now, I want to just be real with you. Your son's never going to talk, and he's never going to walk. And I watched my wife's eyes well up with tears for a second. Then she got up out of the chair. She looked at the doctor. I'll leave the bleeping words out and say, "Doctor, I am going to prove you wrong." And today my son walks, he talks, and he does everything that the doctor didn't think he could do. That's the power of a mom. That's the power of what you've accomplished. And so to all the moms in the room, to all the truth seekers and truth tellers, we still have a lot of work ahead of us. My good friend Charlie Kirk, I spent some time with him just a couple of weeks before he passed in Colorado. And we were on stage and we were joking, we got a country to save. And he looked me in the eye and he said, "No, John, we have Western civilization to save." That is our nation's clarion call. That is your call. You're already well on the way, as President Trump recognized, to accomplishing that. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for having me here. Have a great conference. God bless you all. Thank you.